Thank you very much, Ken, for the opening prayer. And good evening, friends. Welcome to the presentation number 57 of Two Witnesses. That is the main heading, but we have started a sub series that is Babylon and part 23 of Babylon as it is prophesied to be judged. So we are going through the shadows first via the physical Babylon and exploring Jeremiah 50 and 51 chapters, line by line, verse by verse. And for last few presentations, we are exploring verse 27 of chapter 51 with a magnifying glass. And we're trying to explore every phrase in this. This is pretty important verse that throws more light on how the Babylon would be judged in future, the spiritual Babylon. So we took on ourselves to study the physical Babylon and physical fall and try to capture the signatures, the cryptic messages and hints that are embedded in these verses. Today, I want to explore chariot horses as locusts. God is calling upon horses. If you see in English translation, you would see horses. And he calls for horse and horses to be raised to come and decimate Babylon, to invade and make it desolate without inhabitant. So the word horses in Hebrew, the original language, implies they are war horses. The war horses also imply a warrior riding those horses. So we have horses and warriors riding on the horses. And also the Hebrew word is called soos, S-O-O-S. That's how it is pronounced. It also includes chariot. So you're talking about not mere horses, but chariot horses. They pull the horses. So that is the Hebrew word means. So what is communicated to us is much more than a mere horse. It includes the riders, it includes the chariots, it includes the military assault. Babylon is known for its horse strength and horsepower, but now God is raising another horsepower more powerful than Babylonians, and they come and decimate Babylon. That is the general theme. And I want to discuss a little bit about horses. Horse as an animal. Horse primarily is known for its fast speed, agility. That's what in modern times we would compare horse with other animals. If you take camels, they're extremely slow. If you say donkey, that's a little bit better, but it cannot attain rapid speeds that a horse can attain. The horses are used in ancient times as well as modern times for horse and buggy, horse and cart to pull and to do works in in the in 17 and 1800s in America, in Midwest and some places, horses were even used to plow the fields. But when we come to Bible, the horses are primarily presented to us as symbols or emblems of strength. They no doubt have speed, and speed is also included, but the primary thrust is horse as a power and strength. The strength of horse and strength of power is needed for a warrior to enhance his ability to fight. That is the thing. If you are given no weapons and ask all the world's countries to fight just with fists, probably China would beat everybody else. If you give all the inhabitants of Earth just sticks and you are allowed to use only sticks, even then Chinese probably would beat everybody else with sticks. But if you give swords, Then you have sword with the maneuvers and the skill. And then it is very difficult to say the outcome with the swords. And if you give all the people guns, then even it is uncertain. So the technology and the military help would change the outcome of war. Whoever has greater technology would obviously win. That's by normal. God can come and intervene and override every time and any time at his discretion. That's why we were told the armies do not bring us victory, but it is arm of the Lord, not arm of flesh, but arm of the Lord. The horses have been employed from ancient times militarily for a military warfare, and Bible's main thrust is the military. It was used by ancient Egyptians, that is the first occurrence in scriptures, and Pharaoh and his horses. And horses often associate with chariots. Before coming to chariots, horses as such are incredibly fast and incredibly helpful beasts that riders would ride on them with sword, with spear, and with sometimes with arrows. And they provide rapid movement of the forces. So the horses were employed along with the riders, and riders have to train the horses, and horses have to be trained to take the instructions of the riders. And horses are the animals with fairly good intelligence. And sometimes we find smart horses and they do smart work. But researchers found that smart horses do not exist independently. Smart horses are made out of smart trainers. The way you train a horse, the way you reinforce its behavior, and it can take instructions from one who rides through the training, and smart trainers produce smart horses. And horse typically lives like 15 years to 20 years. That is the average lifespan. And they come in various breeds and various pedigrees, and some are very high and some are small. And Egyptian horses differed from Assyrian horses. Assyrian horses also differed from Persian and Babylonian horses. So there's slight variations in terms of how they appear and how they combat. But this is a formidable weapon or the locomotive of the ancient warfare. So the horses and riders, they come with sometimes swords, sometimes with spears, sometimes with arrows, sometimes with clubs. So you have one army with horses approaching, and the enemy also come on horses, and they also come with clubs and swords and all kinds of arrows. Then they developed the technology of shield. So you have to shield while you are riding the horse from the arrows that are thrown from enemy, and while you want to shoot them or you want to use your sword or club and beat them, but you also want to protect yourself, especially your head, with a shield. So you over the years, armies have developed the various ways to effectively combat the enemy armies. So we have all these things evolving, horse and rider, and then they found a need for a chariot. A chariot would help with greater stability, and chariot can accommodate more than one rider. So the chariot can now enhance the military capability of the forces, and one person can hold the shield, and the other person can hide behind the shield and shoot the arrows, or he can use the weaponry. And one person can hold the uh, armory, especially arrows, and he was called arms bearer, and he quickly gives the ammunition, that is, basically arrows, and quickly to the person who would shoot the arrows. And he also shields. And also, it is useful to shield your horse along with yourself. So, if horse is hit, you are disabled. You can easily at a disadvantageous position. So the chariots also came into existence, and now chariots can be tied to multiple horses, especially two horses. So you have greater power and greater strength and greater ability and more than one warriors. Egyptians known to have three men in a chariot, and sometimes chariots are used just to transport to the battlefield. And in the battlefield, while the front armies, the front lines would fight more ferociously, but if they get injured, they will be pulled back and immediately they will be replaced by other soldiers. But other soldiers have to keep up with the pace of the battle and the movement of the troops and movement of the whole battlefield. That's why you need something else to transport quickly and fast in par with the front lines. That's where the transport chariots came into existence. Sometimes they held three or four multiple soldiers. So the chariots came a big handy and enhanced the power of horses and riders. So we have all these significant advances in military technology, and and we have uh, the horses and chariots and the riders, and this is military. And God uses also as horses and riders without chariots and also with chariots in prophecy. So the horses are mega subject. So I'm planning to cover and introduce only prophecy related horses. The horses and chariots related to prophecy, they're primarily in two chapters of Bible. Zechariah, not two chapters, two books, Zechariah and Revelation. So I would go in detail uh, between Zechariah and Revelation and try to harmonize and tie up how Babylon, the end time spiritual Babylon, would be judged. So let's see, let's launch into the presentation. And it's not super lengthy. I'm hoping to wrap it up in 45 minutes. So you have this etymology. You have various Hebrew words are used uh, with respect to this. So the first word is sus. King James uses CUWC, but sus is how it is pronounced. Within these curly braces, I'm giving you pronunciation. It's a swallow and swift. It is in Hebrew, but Hebrew has more than one meaning. And every time it is translated horse, it is a horse. And it also has a connotation of chariot horses. The horses that are pulling chariots, and you're hinted with a battlefield, with a warfare. And in our Jeremiah 51, verse 27, when God calls for horses to be raised against Babylon, the word sus is used. That means he's talking about a military assault on Babylon. Other words are interesting, and hippos is a horse in Greek, and Parash is horse, steed, a war horse. Sometimes these words are interchangeably used along with horseman, the one who rides. So the distinction is not very clear between the horse and the one who rides the horse. So they're considered as one unit. A moving horse with its rider on it is one unit. That is the biblical paradigm. So that's one unit moving. A second way is the horse and chariot and the soldiers in chariot. all the three are considered as one unit, a military unit in movement in war scenario. So that's the idea. So sometimes it is translated as horseman, sometimes it is just horse, but both are valid translations for Parash. And you have Suwa. Susa is a female horse. So very fascinating. This is used in Song of Solomon, and the the groom addresses the bride, "Come, you are like a female horse." And he used Susa, and he also uses the whole band of horses, and perhaps chariots are also included, and they're all coming. That kind of scenario is used for his bride. Isn't it fascinating? Uh, I don't have bandwidth time to go through Song of Solomon. I wanted to go maybe next time. So here the bride of Christ is also addressed as a band of war horsemen and war horses. The horses and horsemen and perhaps chariots were also included. They are coming as a big army, and that army is some kind of symbolized by a female horse, singular horse. So this makes sense more when we come to Revelation, when Jesus Christ on a white horse and the armies of heaven, the resurrected saints, they all come on white horses. They come as a big army, but that is perhaps symbolically represented as the bride and the wife of the Lamb following him. And that is an incredible, terrible army to bring in judgment on end time spiritual Babylon. That's where we are going with this vocabulary. Abir is another Hebrew word. It is mighty, valiant of men, angels, animals, and of princes. And some Bible translations use this word also for horses because of animals. So just to be aware. And Rakesh. Rakesh is again Hebrew word, steeds and horses. Karkara is dromedary camel, and beasts. Most English translations, especially King James, they make it into a camel, this word, but other usages and researchers see that more as a horse than a camel. So I also included it in the list of the words that are used. And Merkaba in Hebrew is chariot, the chariot. And you have Rekab, a riding chariot or a war chariot is Rekab. This is widely used, these two words for chariots. And you have Harma in Greek, a chariot in the New Testament. So these are the words formed to explain the concepts of horse and chariot. Sometimes horse plus rider. So, and then I have gathered few pictures from archaeological diggings, and so I have sketches of these horses. Just want to give you a visual clues of this, how these horses and chariots look like. The first is Egyptian horse. Look at the shape and and the and the and the general look and feel of this horse. Egyptians are known for extensive use of horses and chariots. And in fact, when Israelites were crossing the Red Sea, they were terrified when they saw from a distance approaching chariots of Pharaoh and the horses. Then ancient Assyrian horse. It's slightly different, and Assyrians actually perfected use of horse. They are much more advanced than Egypt. I will come to that when we come to chariots. ancient Persian horse, the Medo-Persian horse, when God said, raise a horse, raise a horseman against Babylon, in the immediate physical context, it is Medo-Persia, which was raising horses to invade Babylon. And so this probably was in immediate context, Medo-Persian horse. There are slight variations. I'm not sure if that is significant. Sometimes the horses are decorated if they are carrying king. And here is chariot horse of Ramses, Egyptian, from a monument at some place. So look at the decorations they make. They want to make a distinction and differentiation between the ordinary horses run by ordinary men versus the king and his special horse. So the horse also receives some good things that which king supposed to uh, receive. So you can see all the decorations and the bells and whistles that go with this horse. An ancient Assyrian riding horse with trappings. So again, Assyrians have perfected the use of horse. Of course, Alexander has excelled. He's very genius in the military strategy and usage of horses. And this is chariots. We come to ancient Egyptian chariot of war with bow cases and complete furniture except the yoke. Of course, yoke is somewhere here. And we have all the bows and all the ammunition that they need, ancient times. And this is two-wheeled. And Egyptian chariots are supposed to be very, very lightweight. They're more made up of wood, and their horses can easily pull these chariots. And it was told, one of the researchers found that they are so light, Egyptian soldier can carry this entire chariot on his shoulder and carry it for a long distance. It was so light. So that is the technology, the lightness made up of wood, and they have speed and agility. And the strength of horse is completely transferred to chariot because it is so light, so they can charge. That's why when Egyptian chariots are coming, Israelites were terrified. You can't fight with bare arms without horses or without weaponry. They come and kill anybody, everybody. From a distance, they shoot arrows. When they come close, they take swords and spears and cut off the heads. So it's a very vicious, like this is the technological advancement. It is like in medieval times, Arabs were still fighting with swords and Europeans came with guns. You just can't stand an army with guns with your swords. The huge technological difference makes it impossible for the enemy army to face because of the superior technology. When we come to Assyrians, they have upgraded and made it very, very advanced when it comes to chariots. Here you can see there are like 6 spokes for Egyptian chariots. They are light, but when we come to Assyria, they have 8 spokes. That's very, very signature kind of thing for Assyrians. 8, they're very strong and I hope I have. Ancient Egyptian chariot in battle. You see, it is running, and then he takes the spear and he throws that perhaps against the enemy. Oh, and this is like under high speed activity. Uh, you have your reflexes should be good, and your horse's reflexes should be good, and your machinery should work well, and your wheels should be in proper place, and you have definite advantage if everything works. That's how ancient Egyptians won several battles. Ancient Assyrian warriors, here they have given 6 spokes, but mostly it is 8 spokes for Assyrians. Assyrians also have something very interesting construction, a wheel within a wheel. So the wheels are very strong, and wheels within wheel with 8 spokes, it is a stronger wheel, and the wheel has a metallic rim or some kind of metallic rim, and it goes through whatever terrain it is. Just horse pulls that, and this moves with all the multiple horses, 2 or 3 horses I can see here. They will pull this, and they will be rapid, more than 1 or 2, at least 3 people are here. One is throwing the uh, arrows, and others are protecting him, and perhaps the third person is supplying the arrows from the store. So it's a ruthless machine. And also it seems towards the center they have uh, some kind of sharp edged knife-like weapon was fitted to the center of this spoke. And that, when it is run at that high speed, sometimes Assyrians are so cruel, they run into the people, and these would just cut and rip off the people. When they were invading Israel, they could rip off the people, and the flesh is torn and flown. And they also believed to have some shining metal on the spoke. And when the wheels are coming, when the sunlight falls on these wheels, it shines with a brilliant thing, and that kind of blinds the Israelites or any enemy country to them. And that was also very terrifying and frightening. And before you know what's happening, chariot is over you, and either you would be victim of their weapons or victim of this. If you have seen the movie Ben-Hur, they have this kind of weapon fitted to the center of the wheels, and wheel within wheel. And when God said, I am the one who has a wheel within my wheel, within a wheel, and my chariots, my mechanisms of cherubims and seraphims. And when I go, you see wheel within a wheel. But I'm going to be against you, O Israel. I will bring my judgment upon you. So the wheel within that wheel, when God pronounced, perhaps he's also referring to Assyrian chariots. So that's so much about the Assyrian chariots. We'll see a few more pictures. The royal chariot from the later Assyrian monuments. So we have some decoration. Horses also have some decoration. And the king would stand here. This is not a military, but this is a pride and pomp display during the peaceful times. And ancient Assyrian chariot for chase. So I don't know why they have put a lion. Uh, this is a ferocious thing. This is dreaded by Israelites, the Assyrian chariots. And ancient Greek chariot, you can say they have improvised their chariots. They haven't used chariots in extensively, because when Alexander came on this scene, all his technique was rapid lightning strike. So it is believed that he used horse and riders instead of not much reliance on the chariots. And he again he's a brilliant general. And okay, let's see. This is ancient Babylonian chariot. They found this inscription on a coin. So you see somebody drew that. So it's very similar to Egyptian chariot. See, this is Egyptian chariot. Sorry, Greek chariot. So the Babylonian chariot is also somewhat like that. That's what people believe. And then ancient Roman chariot. Romans have advanced, and they have all kinds of more weaponry, more sophistication, and an ancient Egyptian chariot carrying three warriors. This is generally as understood as for transportation, second and third lines. The front lines probably single man or two men at most, but you have supplies and other men to replace the wounded or dead soldiers. Now, this is all about the ancient military warfare and the clashes between the kingdoms. And the horses played a very important role, sometimes a decisive role, who would win the battle. As much as we discuss the physical horses in the physical kingdoms and the physical warfare, and we will use this material and understanding and try to make sense of the prophecy of the symbology of horses, symbology of chariots, how God uses that, how God uses these horsemen, chariots, and the warriors to judge Babylon, to judge Babylon. As we are discussing Babylon, Babylon is multifaceted, multi-level spiritual entities. We understand Babylon by description matching. We are learning descriptions through various chapters of Old Testament. Now we already educated ourselves with different features of a Babylon. And wherever you see Babylon, any entity, a person, a family, a church, a Zoom room, a city, a country, or the whole world, you look at it and describe it truthfully and honestly with all your discernment. And when you truthfully describe it, you also have enough discernment to decide whether this qualifies to be Babylon or not. If it is Babylon, we have clear instructions and command from God, stay out of Babylon. Now, Babylon is spiritual when you come to Revelation. There is no physical entity. If you go to such a place, such a street, there you find Babylon. There is no such thing. Babylon is everywhere. You identify it by its character, by its features. Let us make a name for ourselves. Let us make a Shem for ourselves. We reject the true Shem, Jesus Christ, and we make our own Shem, our own rules, our own gospel, our own rules, our own fundamental doctrines. There you have Babylon. If you don't do that, if you come to true Shem and worship God via the true Shem, Jesus Christ, you are Zion, spiritual Israel, the true church. That's the fundamentals. So let's see this. Horses. Horses of the Bible are almost exclusively war horses, or at least the property of kings and not of common people. This is how Bible approaches. A doubtful reference to the use of horses in the threshing grain is found in Isaiah 28:28. Even though threshing floor, we did this like few presentations ago, but it is doubtful if that is horse or some other animal. Horses are among the property which the Egyptians gave to Joseph in exchange for grain. In Deuteronomy 17:16, it is enjoined that the king shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he may multiply horses. The clear commandment, of course, Solomon completely violated. Uh, this and other injunctions failed to prevent the Jews or Israelites from borrowing from neighboring civilizations, their customs, idolatries, and vices. Solomon's horses are enumerated, 1 Kings 4. He clearly transgressed commandment from God not to multiply horses. In war, horses were ridden and were driven in chariots. So horses and chariots go together from time immemorial. What about chariots? Chariots, in a figurative language of scripture, the chariot has a place. It is a tribute to the powerful influence of Elijah and Elisha when they are separately called the chariots of Israel and the horsemen thereof. So Elijah and Elisha were called chariots of Israel and horsemen thereof. This is the symbology. The angelic hosts are declared to be God's chariots. So angels were sometimes referred to as God's chariots. Twice 10,000, thousands upon thousands in Psalm 68:17. But the chariots and horses themselves are a poor substitute for the might of God. So you can't trust the chariots and horses alone. If God is not on your side, you are going to lose. So you can't substitute them for God. That is Psalm 28. God himself is represented riding upon his chariots of salvation for the defense of his people. Habakkuk 3:8. So God himself is supposed to be riding on chariots. We see more on the visions of God. He has chariots. Sometimes he has chariots of fire, whatever they mean. In book of Zechariah, the four chariots with their horses of various colors have an apocalyptic significance. We will go this in detail. In the worship of the host of heaven, which prevailed in the later days of the kingdom of Judah, the chariots of sun is a pagan worship, but symbols led the people into gross idolatry, and King Josiah burnt them with fire. So these chariots of sun. So we'll see a couple of verses on chariots, chariots of fire. 2 Kings 6:17. When Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of young man. He saw, and behold, a mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. This is believed to be armies of heaven. There are horses and chariots of fire. So this is a different symbology. We are moving away from physical horses and physical battles into chariots of fire and horses of fire. One more verse, Isaiah 66, verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. So the Lord will come with fire and flames of fire and chariots like a whirlwind. Interesting. God also comes on chariots. I thought he will come only on horses in Revelation 19. But there is an embedded verses. Old Testament supplies additional information. So in Revelation 19, we see Jesus Christ sitting on a white horse, and the armies of heaven followed on white horses. But there are also chariots behind them. Isn't it interesting how studying Old Testament would help you with the full picture? Also, the horses are color coded in Zechariah. We will see color coded horses in Zechariah and try to make a sense with the Revelation. Zechariah 1, verse 8. This is visions of Zechariah. I saw by night, behold, a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him were red horses, speckled and white. Then I said, My Lord, what are these? And the angel that talked with me and said unto me, I will show you what these be. So he saw a red horse and other horses. There are red, speckled, and white. Horses, red, speckled, and white. This is the first introduction of visions of prophecy. And Zechariah chapter 1, verse 10, continuing from previous verse. And the man that stood among myrtle trees answered me, These are they whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. So it's a combing through earth, what this horse's function is. They answered the angel of the Lord that stood among the myrtle trees and said, We have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, all the earth sits still and is at rest. So the walking through and fro through the earth is an interesting phrase that is used for the eyes of the Lord, eyes of the Lord. And they're also used for the spirits of the Lord, seven spirits, seven eyes. And here we see there are also the horses, the red horse and other associated red, white, and speckled horses. They're all somehow spiritual horses combing through earth. Later on, if you follow Zechariah 1, you see those are also bringing judgment on the earth, judgment on Babylon. Perhaps these horses are already monitoring and watching and ready to bring judgment on the spiritual Babylon. Is it possible? My main uh, interest today is Zechariah 6. Zechariah 6, we see color coded horses. And interestingly, Zechariah would tell us these horses also have chariots. The colored horses are also have chariots. And the horses are color coded. You have red, white, black, and these are three primary colors. And the fourth one is not a natural color. It is uh, it is some kind of weird pattern. So when horses are color coded, we have 3+1 uh, pattern. Three are basic primary colors, and the fourth one is an odd color that wouldn't exist in nature. So we see this 3+1 pattern of the colored horses, and these do very interesting things. And in fact, Zachariah gives a lot more information that we can add to what we find in Revelation, because this is a pattern that is going to be repeated in Revelation. Zechariah 6, verse 1. And I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came four chariots out from between two mountains. You have two mountains, and between the two mountains, you have four chariots came. Of course, chariots won't run by themselves. They are not locomotives, they are not cars, they are not Tesla. They have to be pulled by horses. So that is implied. So when you have chariots, you should have that concept, unity concept. A unit consists of the chariot and the horses and the warriors. All three go together. That is the Hebraism, Hebrew concept as a unit. So the four chariots came out of mountains, the mountains of brass. The brass is a color code of Greece, and brass is also feet and thighs and feet of resurrected Jesus Christ. Perhaps they are coming from the Lord Jesus Christ. And the first chariot were red horses. More than one horse for this chariot, red horses, and the second chariot was black horses. So red, black. And the third chariot, white horses. By the way, you see these colors in the nature for horses. You have like reddish horses and black horses, very majestic, and white horses, albino horses, perhaps. So you have all these naturally occurring colors. But the fourth is odd one, 3+1 pattern. And the fourth chariot is grizzled and bay horses, whatever that means. Zechariah 6, verse 4, continuing, Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, What are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, These are four spirits of heavens. Wow. This four spirits. We see four, severals of fours, FOUR, four. We have four angels standing at the four corners of earth, holding the four winds of the earth. We have four spirits of heaven now are four chariots, four horses, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all earth. So they are coming from God. And the black horses which they run go in forth into the north country. Now, this is an additional information. You don't see this in Revelation. The black horses would go into north country, wherever that is. We don't know. We have to discern it later. And the white horses and white chariots and white warriors also go after them. So the black horses would go to the north country. After them follows the white horses and white chariots and white warriors all go that unit into the north country. And the grizzled go forth towards the south country. So the grizzled is counterpart in Revelation is pale horse. Pale horse. The word pale in Greek is actually chloros. Chloros has to be translated as green. It's a chlorophyll, chloroform, all the green things come. So chloros, that has to be translated as green. Since green does not exist in the nature, say they have put like pale horse, like that's a bad translation in Revelation from Greek. So here you have an odd horse. So black and white go into north, and the grizzled would go to the south. It is silent about red. Probably red also follows the grizzled to the south. Who knows? But scripture doesn't tell us. Zechariah 6, verse 7, and the bay went forth and sought to go that they might walk to and fro through the earth. This is the fourth horse. And he said, get you hence, walk to and fro through the earth. Now again, the at least the fourth horse was told to go to and fro through the earth. The earlier first Zechariah first chapter, they're also doing the exactly same thing. They're walking to and fro through the earth. So they walked to and fro through the earth, and then he cried upon me and spoke unto me, saying, behold, these that go toward north country have quietened my spirit in the north country. If you follow these things, you would see the judgments would come in Zechariah chapter 6. That would be a study for sometime later on. We will now shift to Revelation and try to make sense out of these horses. Revelation 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, now we are talking about 7 seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of a thunder, and one of the 4 beasts saying, come and see. Again, you have 4 beasts. Why these 4s? That's a wonder. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him a bow. So the white horse has come first, and white horse has a rider on him, had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. So it's a war. It's a picture of war, and the crown, victory, and the bow. It's a open war and onslaught that is indicated by white horse. And the rider, we don't know if he's sitting on the horse or a chariot that is attached to the horse. He's sitting in the chariot. Typically, when you use the bow, it's hard to ride a horse. So typically, a person would sit in a chariot that is attached, which information is supplied to us from Zechariah 6. So I'm assuming the white horse has a chariot, and the person who is in the chariot has a bow in his hand. I know several artists would show a man riding the horse and with a bow, but it is less likely. They should have put a chariot and a horse and a man in chariot aiming the bow. Continuing, Revelation 6, verse 3, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard, and the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat up thereon to take peace from earth, that they shall kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. The first one has a bow, as a war, and the second one is sword. Bow, with bow, you have arrows that you shoot. That's a kind of warfare. But here it's a sword, and peace is taken that they should kill one another. So it's an intensification of the warfare. Isn't it surprising? Jesus starts Olivet prophecy. You hear about the wars and rumors of wars. Perhaps this is the initial phase. Revelation 6, verse 5, when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. He that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. So he has pair of balances in his hand. It's hard to ride the horse if you have that. Typically, you would sit in a chariot. That's my take on this. And this is indicating famine. Because here, let me read this verse. I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for penny. So barley and wheat are rationed, and that's a shortage of food. And hurt not the oil and wine, whatever they symbolically represent, those are not hurt, those are not touched. Oil and wine. So this is indicating a famine, and Jesus Christ also included famine and pestilences in his Olivet prophecy. So we have 3 horses so far, red, black, and white. And we have the odd one, 3 plus 1 pattern. Revelation 6, verse 7, chapter 6, verse 7. When he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice from the 4th beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. The word pale should be green. A green horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. So the rider has a name. His name is Death. And hell followed, Hades followed him with him. And he was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, and with death, and with beasts of the earth. See, the first 2 horses and 3 horses did exactly these things. Kill with sword, kill with hunger, kill with death. And this pale horse is also adding the beasts of the earth. This is exactly what the pattern is, what God promised. If Israel were disobedient in Deuteronomy, he would bring 4 judgments upon Israel: the sword, famine, pestilence, and beasts. You have exact phraseology matching here. And that's about, I have a tabular form. In next slide, I will show you. I want to go back to Zechariah 10. There is another incident of the horse and chariots. Zechariah chapter 10, verse 1. Ask ye of the Lord rain in the time of the latter rain. So the Lord shall make bright clouds and give them showers of rain, and to everyone grass in the field. Now the whole horses and the attack shifts to the church, the spiritual Israel, the true church against false church. People are not in right standing with God under new covenant. Here God is bringing judgment on this portion of church which are not right with him. He begins this with pastors, ministers, teachers. Verse 2, for the idols have spoken vanity, and the diviners have seen a lie, and have told false dreams, and they comfort in vain. Therefore, they went their way as a flock, and they were troubled because there was no shepherd. There was no true shepherd. Jesus Christ is no longer there in those churches. We see this pattern both in Revelation as well as Jeremiah. The bride and bridegroom were not there. Their voice is no more heard in Babylon. Isn't it interesting? Because of no shepherd, no true shepherd in the context, they were going astray. Continuing, Zechariah 10, verse 3, my anger was kindled against the shepherds, teachers, leaders, and all the prominent men in our churches, and I punished the goats, for the Lord of hosts has visited his flock, the house of Judah, and has made them his goodly horse in the battle. So the true Christians, he's making them a goodly horse in battle. Isn't it strange? Out of him come forth the corner, out of him the nail, out of him the battle bow, out of him every oppressor together. Zechariah 10, verse 5. And they shall be as mighty men, which tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets. In the battle, they shall fight, because Lord is with them, and the riders on horses shall be confounded. So we have horses and riders from Babylon, these false teachers and false brethren. And here you have true church coming along with Jesus Christ, perhaps. They're also coming on horses, but God is on their side. So they are guaranteed victory. Revelation 19, verse 11, we see this. God's people would come as armies on horses and chariots. And Revelation 19, verse 11 is a beautiful vision of Jesus Christ and resurrected saints coming. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness does he judge and make war. This is a righteousness war. War is done for righteousness' sake. War is done in righteousness. Right? War is done by righteous people, Jesus Christ and his followers. The holiness. In Zechariah, we would come back and see these horses would continue to work throughout the millennium, and they have bells. They're called holiness. The holiness, righteousness, in justice, with full justice. This war is made by Jesus Christ. His eyes were as flame of fire. His eyes are red with vengeance, with the wrath of God, and on his head were many crowns. He has many crowns or victories already prophesied, already coronated in heaven. Now he would be coronated on earth after the defeat of Babylon and Babylonians, spiritual Babylon. And he had a name written that no man knew but himself. Revelation 19, verse 13, he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. He was crucified and rejected by this Babylon. But now he is coming back. His name is called Word of God. And the armies which are in heaven followed him on white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. So there are spiritual horses. And continuing Revelation 19, we are skipping to verse 17. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying, all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of great God, that ye may eat flesh of the kings, flesh of the captains, flesh of the mighty men. These are all Babylonians, and flesh of horses, Babylonian horses, and of them that sit on them, and flesh of all men, both free and bond. small and great. I think these are same people who received the mark of the beast, and they are the same people part of spiritual Babylon. Continuing, Revelation 19, verse 19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. So this is the final battle, and the beast was taken, and with him false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that received the mark of the beast, and then that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So, this is the judgment given to them by the great King, Jesus Christ, Lord Jesus Christ. Revelation 19, verse 21, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, and which proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. Zechariah 14:20, and after the war, after the defeat of all the enemies, there is still the work being done, still the work being done by Jesus Christ and the resurrected saints and with their horses. This is a glimpse of what would happen into yet far future. Zechariah 14, verse 20, in that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses, it will be written upon the bells of the horses, holiness unto the Lord. Actually, holiness unto the Lord is also engraved on the high priest of Aaronic order on his forehead. Here it is written, holiness unto the Lord on the foreheads of resurrected saints of God, as well as on the horses. Now, horse and the rider, they're considered together as one unit. That's why the holiness is on their foreheads and holiness also on the bells. Bells are the sounds that the horses make. The sound probably is the gospel that comes out of the resurrected saints. And the pots in the Lord's house shall be like bowls before the altar. The pots hold the food. Bowls, that is true manna, perhaps. Yeah, every pot in Jerusalem, in Judah, this is spiritual Jerusalem and spiritual Judah, shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seat them. In that day there shall be no more Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. No more spiritual Canaanites, no more uncircumcised in heart, no more unchristians, no more enemies of Christ, no more false teachers and false brother. Everybody is converted. The true Jerusalem, true Judah, true Israel would be holiness unto the Lord. Canaanite, not physical Canaanite, spiritual Canaanite is out. So this is red horse, red, black, white, grizzle. We see this order in Zechariah. And black goes to north, white goes to north, following black, and grizzled and bay go to south country. In Revelation, the order is mangled. First comes white horse in Revelation, and the second comes red horse, and third comes black horse, and the pale horse is somewhat related to grizzled and bay, and we are not given where they would go. Zechariah gives us, and Zechariah also adds chariot. Here we don't see chariot. The north country, the third, famine, oil and wine. So probably if you go with Zechariah's order, first the north country, there is a famine unleashed, and then there is also war. If you go by Zechariah, then the death will go into the south country and hell follows him. But if you go with the Revelation, the first there will be the red horse. Sorry, in Revelation, first there will be white horse, and there will be war, and which will go into north country in the war, and the second will be this war and peace would be taken out, and the sword, which we were not told which country it is, probably south country. And then according to Revelation, the third would be black horse, and which is supposed to go to north country, and the famine is resulting in north country, and the fourth is death. So whichever order they juggled, so we need to figure out which order is right. Most Bible teachers and scholars would come to Olivet prophecy, Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 24 and 28. There you have right order. So we will bring all these prophecies put in order according to Olivet prophecy. So this is where we have harmonization. And let's pick up in Jeremiah. Behold, I am against you, O destroying mountain, said the Lord, which destroys all the earth. I will stretch out mine hand upon you, roll you down from the rocks, will make you a burnt mountain. Is it something happening today? Are they destroying the whole earth with various things? By contaminating the air, contaminating the waters, contaminating the food? Are they destroying the earth? It's no longer livable and God has to step in? I sometimes wonder. This is a mountain that is doing this. And God said, I will roll you down the mountain. I will make you a burnt mountain. He will burn the Babylon, whoever are doing these things. And they shall not take you for a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundation, but you shall be desolate forever, said the Lord. Set you all up. Now God is calling armies from ends of the earth to come and decimate this Babylon. Sometimes ends of the earth may mean the heaven, Jesus Christ and the resurrected saints. Set you all up a standard in the land. Blow the trumpet among the nations. Prepare the nations against her. Call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Minni, and Ashkenaz. Appoint a captain against her. Cause the horses, sus, that means war horses, or chariot horses, to come upon as the rough caterpillars. Are we talking about all these horses, red, white, black, and strange horse? Are these horses unleashing judgment against Babylon? Does Zechariah 27, Jeremiah 51, verse 27, is it talking about same things that Zechariah is talking about and Revelation is talking about? Rough caterpillars can be translated as locusts. Jeremiah 51, same words, other translations, Net Bible, would translate slightly differently. Raise up battle flags throughout the land. Sound the trumpets, calling nations to do battle. Prepare the nations to do battle against Babylon. Call for these kingdoms to attack her, Ararat, Minni, and Ashkenaz. Appoint a commander to lead the attack. Send horses against her as like a swarm of locusts. Now, these chariots are itself powerful with their horses and riders, but they are coming in innumerable number, armies of heaven perhaps. They're coming as locusts, so to surround Babylon and decimate that. We see Septuagint would translate this in a slightly different way. Same verse, lift up standard in the land, sound the trumpet among the nations, consecrate nations against her, raise up kings against her by me. that the people of Ashkenaz set against her engines of war, bring up against her horses as multitude of locusts. This is probably a poetic or shorthand way of referring to the cavalry and chariotry, where horse is put for rider and driver. It's a Net Bible commentary. And swarm of locusts. Hebrew bring up horses like bristly locusts. The meaning of the Hebrew word bristly is uncertain because of the word occurs only here. It is generally related to a verb meaning to bristle, to occur in which occurs in Job 4:15 and Psalm 119:20. Exactly what is meant by bristly in connection with the locust is uncertain, though most relate it to a stage of the locust in which its wings are still encased in a rough, horny casing. Adds that it is when the locust is very destructive. However, no other commentary mentions this. Therefore, the present translation omits the word because it is of uncertain meaning and significance. So, Net Bible omits that bristly locust, it just puts locust. And that will bring the end of the presentation. And I will open the room for discussion. Thank you very much for your attention. Your contributions and insight are greatly valued.
Thank you, Tigor, for that very uh, visually challenging um, discussion. I'm, as you were talking about it, I'm trying to imagine what's happening in the heavens and how this all this is coming to pass and has come to pass, and how it can connect to the rumors of wars as well. We have gone to World War I and II, but even before that, um, I never realized that, for example, in India, you're, there were millions killed by the Muslims, and maybe even more than what has happened in World War I or II. I have no idea how many wars have happened, and um, the world as we knew it before we knew World War I and II as history, I believe if it centered around Israel and the Middle East and Asia in general, as they knew the world, Europe was not part of it yet. So there have been so many wars and rumors of wars, even right now. In the Philippines, there, thank you, Lord, for the de escalation of China and the Philippines. China was so threatened, I think, with the missiles of the US coming in, because that's their paranoia even from the start. When I interviewed a Chinese woman who grew up in communist China, and she's only in her early 30s. So in her mind, there's already the brainwashing that their biggest enemy is the US. So if the whole country is brainwashed to think that US will attack China, that's the way they think. And we need to pray that their mindset is changed. And also in the US itself with Trump, getting uh, um, the assassination attempt. We pray that there's really some changes in the US as well. Thank you.
Yes, Ken and Christine.
Hi, are the Ashkenaz, are those consist of those who say they are Jews and are not Jews, but of the household of Satan?
We can't say without any scriptural basis. In the last presentation, we just traced them to be of Khazars nation, and they constitute bulk of current Jews in Israel. Up to that point, we have made a historical connection, not biblical connection. But at this point, uh, I don't want to say neither yes nor no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Alan.
I'm thinking back at the four horses and what they represent in Revelations 6. The sequence that they ride out on seems to be a spiritual matter. So since we know that Revelation is symbolic, it doesn't actually mean war like fighting with guns. It's symbolic of spiritual matters. How can we see this fitting with modern culture? The first one, white, is, let's read that. Let's see, white horse sat on him, had a bow. Oh, which, by the way, it occurred to me when you were reading about the riding of horses and the bow. There's some really good images about the Mongolians who were able to ride swiftly while shooting their bow. They were notorious for being able to make their warriors on horses could shoot straight backwards behind them or in any other direction. If you look up the image, if you look at images of Mongolian horsemen, it's really intriguing. They were the only ones known for that. And it's one of the reasons why the conquest of the Mongolians under Genghis Khan, and I think Kublai Khan after that, his brother, why they were able, their conquest was very, very successful because of shooting a bow while riding. But here we see the white horse had a bow, which means shooting from a distance, and a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Now, every crown is not a righteous crown. There are wicked crowns that conquer. So what's happening here? This is not to be taken literally. This is to be taken as this is a spiritual conquest. And what happened after the first century, this has to be looked at in light of. What kind of spiritual conquering went forth? So it's a rather complex predicament to try to figure it out through the past 20 centuries. But should we place this sequence of the horses over the 20 centuries? Because many people or Bible teachers I've heard in the past wanted to place this sequence at the end of the age. But I think it needs to be looked at over a longer period of time. I think it needs to be looked at as something that occurred after the first century. What's your take on that?
That's true. In the first chapter, he says these things should happen shortly, swiftly. So from the time John wrote the Revelation and released it, from that time all the way to the end, the entire period qualifies for these events. We can't push it to the future. We can't necessarily push it to the past with reference to our time. Most importantly, we should consider our time also in that. That's what I think. Let's quickly go to Ken, what he says. Ken?
I'm just thinking of the verse, the passage that says, "A day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day." It's kind of my take, which is just, it's an ongoing thing, but it will have a culmination, and I think we're close to that. Nevertheless, I can't see it going on too much longer myself, but I don't know. I just wanted to mention that he's the Lord, and he's in control, and it's just that's just my take on it, or what the scripture says anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, but we see a kind of a conquering taking place immediately, even at the time before the apostles were dead. When Paul visits the elders from Ephesus and tells them, "From among yourselves, men will rise up, not sparing the flock." And in Timothy, I think it's 2 Timothy 3. In the last days, perilous times will come. Men will be, and he has a long list of failures of the Christian men and women of that time. So this is talking about in the church. Now, when we read 2 Timothy 3, he's talking about people who were supposed to be members of the body. He doesn't have to write this about those on the outside. It's already known that people are carnal on the outside. And that's why he compares it in verse 8 to Jannes and Jambres, who withstood Moses, because they were on the inside. And he's saying in verse 7, they're always learning something, some knowledge, but they never really come to the knowledge of spiritual truth. So they're not submitting themselves to the lordship of Christ. But they're always learning something, some kind of intellectual exercise. So this description here is about people who have been conquered by the carnal, by the other spirit, by the dark side, you could say. So we see the white horse here. But what happens after that? What does the red horse bring? After you're conquered? To take peace. So after you've gone over to the dark side, as a Christian who has failed to remain faithful, you've lost your peace. Now you're trying to justify. Now you're trying to tell other people why they're wrong and you're right. and that they should kill one another. How are they going to do that spiritually? So you see on and on, each one of these is, you can see there's a kind of a spiritual sequence here. Because after they kill one another, then they have famine. They're spiritually starving. He had a pair of balances in his hand. So is this literal, or is this a spiritual matter? Now you're starving, spiritually speaking, because you no longer spend time in the Word, because you've gone apostate. And you killed one another in your relationships with one another. You've distanced yourself from embracing the brethren, from loving the brethren. And finally, the fourth seal is the pale horse, his ultimate spiritual death. So I realize that we want to take these things kind of in a literal sense, but it's very symbolic language, and it needs to be compared to that which happens to a person spiritually as they become an apostate. So Jude says that he wants to defend the faith once delivered. He wants to persuade the brethren to defend the faith once and for all delivered to the saints, because this is the kind of thing that's happened. Purely symbolic. All right, I'm done.
Thanks, Alan.